a lot more popular.
Right.
Um, so our co-founders are actually ex-bankers, and one of them used to build the core banking system at a private bank. And it was his idea that we could make something far more efficient. So we chose to replace the traditional kind of just like servers, distributed servers, by replacing it with a public blockchain to make it more transparent, more efficient. We rely more on smart contracts and less on people, if
Right.
that makes.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that is the way to go, relying more on smart contracts, less on people. That leaves little room for error and more efficiency gets driven into the process.
Mm-hmm.
Can you also perhaps tell us a little about, because you are ultimately going to be serving a global audience, and right now, as you mentioned, your NFT can be obviously minted by anybody from anywhere in the world. What are the kind of challenges that you foresee in catering to users from diverse regions with varying regulatory environments?
Yeah, I mean, well, as we've seen that now the latest news, the SEC is going after Uniswap Labs, and which is kind of crazy because there is no one kind of entity controlling it. And if we look at the DeFi space in general, we do think that it has to be far more, some regulation is necessary, right, to clean up the space and to protect investors at large. So I think that's something that is really quite important. And as like someone who is, regulated and licensed, we have an opportunity to like bridge this gap between DeFi and TradFi, like identifying all our clients via their Fiat24 NFT. And doing KYC is just, some people don't like it, but it's just, a very necessary part of when you're trying to deal with your finances. So,
Right.
um, yeah, I think it will continue just to be a challenge in general. So,
Okay. And do you have any intentions of the platform to get licensed elsewhere as well in the coming days?
can you repeat your question?
Sure. I was asking you whether, as a platform, do you have intentions to get licensed in other jurisdictions as well?
Oh, no, we don't. I mean, I think having our Swiss license covers us pretty well. So, as I said, we are currently allowed to serve people within the EU, and with
Hmm.
our MasterCard partnership, we will be able to, further expand our regions. Then, of course, if there's the question of if we can serve everyone in the world, I don't think it will be possible because the US has its own unique challenges and tax system that provides, challenges. If you look at countries like Russia or North Korea, perhaps those countries are also not going to be able to be served. But our
Hmm.
general hope is that we will be able to serve most people in the world.
Right, right, absolutely. This is sounding very, very exciting, like as a platform for you that you've already partnered with Visa and you're going to be partnering with MasterCard, your license in Switzerland. So what is next? Like how do you intend to perhaps innovate or bring some kind of new features on the platform? Is that in the offing at all?
Um, I don't think we have plans to this year at least to offer new services,
Hmm.
but our plan is to really become the fiat infrastructure layer for DeFi because a lot of different protocols, including non-custodial wallets and stablecoin issuers and DEXs, I think they have a lot of community members who could use this kind of easy off-ramp service, but for these protocols to be able to do it themselves takes a lot of time and money and also perhaps applying to be regulated in some way. So our focus is really to partner up with some of the best players in the space so that we can bring our services to more communities in the Web3 space.
Right. Wonderful. So, you're also now, taking a step back away from the platform perhaps and talking a little about your own personal journey in Web3. You're a podcast host, you speak at several events, you're also a content creator. How do you leverage these platforms to share your insights and engage with blockchain and crypto communities? And what would you say is the best way for our listeners to be able to catch your content?
Well, I would say I have noticed since I started in this space that one of the key components in this space for all of our combined successes, education and sharing our knowledge and our experiences. So that's really like the impetus for me to create content. And on a personal level, I just enjoy talking to people and networking and also partnering up and working together. So I am also volunteering in a few other projects for that purpose too. And I think it's just really important that we share like news and tips and like bring attention to other people who are doing cool stuff in the space, because maybe Web3 from the outside seems quite small, like your average person on the street doesn't really know what Web3 is. But once you're in it, I think it could be, you can sometimes feel like it's quite a saturated space. So it's good to like highlight people or projects that are doing cool
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah, I think
And
that
yeah,
is very
just
important.
if people want to get in touch or follow me, it's best probably LinkedIn is my most popular channel. And my podcast is something that I unfortunately have limited time to do, but I would like to do it more. And I hope to find the time to put more effort into it.
Brilliant. So, can you tell us a little bit more about your involvement with Crypto Mondays Zurich and other such marketing initiatives? And how do you think do these activities contribute to Fiat24's industry presence?
Yeah, so Crypto Mondays is really cool. Actually, Crypto Mondays is something that is a global initiative and it started in New York. So it's like a monthly meetup in all these big cities around the world so that people can come together. There's a speaker about a certain topic, and then you can all learn something new and ask questions and make friends. So
Right.
I'm really happy to support them because I attended their events for like a year and a half before they asked if I could give them a hand, which I'm happy to do.
Mm,
I also do support, for example, the Swiss FinTech Association because we are a member there, and I'm happy to lend my help because it's a nonprofit organization where I can. And in fact, I think that in Switzerland, people do know Fiat24 quite a lot because of our presence, and we're very active in many communities. And I think it's important because, it's not just about trying to sell something, it's also about being very present where you live and where you're
right.
based. So it's quite important.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think having such events and meeting your peer group, your fellow builders, that can obviously A, be a learning opportunity, but also B, it can create a support system of sorts, right? For builders especially.
Yeah, I think that's quite important. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was Ethereum Zurich, and during this few days conference, we also held an Arbitrum-based event, and it was really cool because it was like a lot of developers and builders who came, and we had people from Arbitrum Foundation and Arbitrum Grant Program, so people could really ask questions and learn a lot. And it's good to see this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's wonderful. So, can you now perhaps tell us a little about your opinion on the space in general. People say that we've entered another bull market, and we are very close to the Bitcoin halving, actually, as we are recording this. So what is your opinion on the trends in this space?
Yeah, the Bitcoin halving will be quite interesting to see. Will be the first one that I'm aware of because I am still quite new in the space. But I think I've spoken to like a lot of people, and I think one of the most hot trends and exciting topics this year, it does kind of have to be crypto payments. We've seen over the last couple of years more companies like Microsoft and Starbucks and Subway, they're all actively embracing cryptocurrency transactions. And besides that, we've seen that consumer demands are also shifting. So people like more and more to use their phone to pay, like for example, their Apple Pay. People like to be more digital. And I hope that the more people that become aware about crypto, like the more that it begins to be used as a payment, which is what it was intended for, actually.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Can you also perhaps recommend some thought leaders or books that, our listeners should, according to you, key into to get the right kind of information with the space, or that you follow?
Yeah, to be honest, it's not like there's one person specifically that I follow.
Yeah.
I have been surprised to find that something as kind of Web2 and corporate as LinkedIn is surprisingly a really good platform to connect with people about Web3. And I have made some really useful and helpful connections on LinkedIn. And apart from that, I'm always on crypto Twitter, of course, which I think is still, very active in a great way to stay in touch with what's happening. And apart from that, I do read like just a lot of the usual kind of financial publications, whether it's mainstream or more focused on crypto. But I think there are a lot of different sources that I use, but personally, there isn't like one kind of person who I follow, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, I think it's usually a plethora of people and resources that we kind of turn to. You have to pick and choose and see who's perhaps giving you content or providing content that is most relevant to you. It can be a very, very subjective experience.
Yeah.
So now let's, because we are almost out of time, I would like to ask you a few fun questions before we kind of wrap this up. How did you come up with the alias Blockchain Babe, and what does it mean to you in the context of your work? If you could tell us a little about the story behind your podcast and content creation journey, that'd be great. Or and please perhaps do mention anecdotes or topics that have stood out for you.
Yeah, so, I think when I first started in this crypto space, it was pretty obvious, like, because when I started, I immediately started attending conferences and local events, and I quickly noticed that the female presence wasn't really there so much, especially sadly when I went to meetups that were more technical. It was really only like a handful of women there. And I thought of this kind of alias of blockchain babe because maybe to me it kind of like celebrates, yeah, like you can be like super female and whatever it means to be a woman, but also be in tech. And I think that's really important. Although I have noticed over the last maybe half a year that more and more women are getting involved. So it's good to see. And in terms of my podcast, like it just came out of the fact that like I traveled like a lot. So like to Croatia and to Spain and to Portugal, to Singapore, and everywhere I would meet such fascinating people and I do love a good story, it's part of my advertising marketing background as well. So I thought it would be a great opportunity to get people who I find are interesting and working on really exciting things to come and talk and get to share what they want. And in terms of creating content, it's something that I will likely do all of my life because it's my passion. I like to do it.
Right, wonderful. So can you tell us a little about perhaps, tell us an anecdote or share something which was perhaps funny or awkward when you actually went about explaining DeFi to somebody or any DeFi concept to somebody outside of the industry?
Yeah, I think in the first year that I was at Fiat24, I was attending a few different conferences and events. And while explaining what we were doing, I mentioned that we were built on Arbitrum, and at the time, either people didn't really hear about it, or they weren't excited about it, or they weren't using it. So I think the initial reaction was, oh no, like people didn't necessarily weren't excited about trying it out because, they didn't really know what Arbitrum was, or they thought it was too complicated that they would have to bridge their ETH to Arbitrum network. So I think that was a little bit awkward, especially in the
Right.
beginning as trying to do marketing and sales and try to talk to people, get them excited, and people, it was like the one thing that was like a barrier for people.
Right, right. Yeah, it was. I think all of this, it does have a bit of a learning curve. So now this kind of brings me to the end of the episode, and I would be amiss if I didn't ask you this one question that I ask everybody who comes on the episode, and this I think would add to your last answer as well. If you made quite a leap from Web 2 to Web 3, you were in Web 2 advertising, and now you're in Web 3. You're working as a CMO of one of the most cutting edge platforms in the crypto fiat integration space. What would be your suggestions for people who are perhaps on the other side for them to be able to start living on blockchain?
Yeah, I think you have to have, first of all, a real interest because the learning curve can be a little bit steep at the beginning. So definitely if you have even a little bit of genuine interest, then it's already a good start. And I always say that the best way to learn is by doing in this case. So you could try to open different wallet accounts and put in just a little bit of money, not too much, and jump into community groups like on Discord and Telegram, and just start learning by talking to the people around and doing some kind of minor testing yourself. I would say that's the best way to learn.
I totally agree. I think you have to get your hands dirty, and by learning by doing is the best way to move forward in this industry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karen, for making the time to speak to me today. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we wrap this up?
Yes, first of all, thanks for inviting me. It's been a really great conversation, but also would like to encourage all the female listeners that even if you don't come from a technical background, that you shouldn't let it put you off or scare you. I think we need a lot more women in this space. And we need to fill the traditional roles that come from Web 2. Like you do still need salespeople and you need marketing people. So if you are interested, like I don't think you should let this kind of male dominated or tech, like overly complicated tech aspect put you off. I think you should just go for it.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that is always good advice. I truly feel that as well, that more women in this space is something that we all need to see. And I think people should stop looking at this space as something very, very esoteric and very, very particular, especially, for people who perhaps are not very heavy on the tech side. I do think that, like any other sector, this has opportunities for people from different skill sets, and everybody is welcome. And we would all like to see more women in this space.
I agree.
Brilliant, awesome. Okay, so thank you once again, Karen, for making the time to speak to me today. This has been a lovely conversation, and I can't wait to try out the platform myself and for our listeners to try it as well. And more power to you. All the best for your partnership announcement with Mastercard.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you. Thanks a lot.